Yeah, so let's just dive a little bit deeper on the monetary perspective. So let's say someone decides, you know what, this person and I that want to partner together, we want to go the monetary route and pay per file. What would be some fair basis points that you personally would pay someone to cover your files? Like, let's break it down even from like discovery call to underwriting to file complete. Like, I know it's kind of getting in the weeds, but this is like that's why we like doing this podcast because nobody talks about this stuff. And I think if we have some
Ooh.
takeaways from like some ideas as to like what you would compensate another broker, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, so I think basis points is really difficult to do because you could work on like a B file that only gets paid
Yeah.
50 bips, and that's hard to spread that around. I think a more fair way to do is if you kind of know what your hourly rate is, to turn on a toggle tracker and be like Tom's files. And I worked on 10 hours on your files over the past week while you were away, and my hourly rate is $225. That's my compensation. If anything funds of those files, you pay me 2,250 is the max end. And I think that's fair. Um, so it does. If it funds today, great. If it funds 6 months from now, you're not constantly having to update because that's just extra admin task and work added to your plate. I think that's probably the easiest way to go about it. And beyond that, like setting basis points is a little bit tricky because you could get a volume bonus 6 months from now or the end of the year for someone like a lender like Scotia. And do I now get a portion of that volume bonus for working on that file? You know what I mean? It's a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, I think my only counter argument to that would be that if you're using like hour tracking, not everyone does that. Like I'd probably say you're of the 1% of brokers that tracks your hours. And so you're gonna now tell this other person, like, hey, you have to track your hours, you have to download Toggle, you have to figure out the system, get that set up properly. I just think it's another hurdle to do. Whereas if you just set up a monetary thing where you're like, hey, every file that you touch, you get 20%, not basis points, percent of the gross commission, including volume bonus. Like that would just be super simple to do it that way. I wouldn't go by basis points either. I would agree with that because then it gets convoluted. But if it's a B file or an A file, it doesn't matter. You're doing percent of gross income. I think that would be easy to
Yeah,
figure out.
I think that's fair. At the end of the day, you can see even within this call, we have different views on how things should be done, and person to person, everyone's going to feel differently that way. So find a person that aligns with you, and then go forward is the easiest
Yep,
way to handle that. And don't
exactly.
you don't have to take the first person you ask. Like treat it like dating, test it out. If you go on vacation, they absolutely fuck up. Don't do it again. Like break that off.